Show me your heart. I know that it's beating. Tell me that you love me too. So I know your heart is true. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. This episode of Proof of Love is brought to you by Vaultoro. Vaultoro is a gold hedging solution for the crypto community. One of the challenges of investing in cryptocurrencies is dealing with volatility. Keeping a diversified portfolio is a key to healthy returns. I keep about 10% of my crypto assets in gold using Vaultoro. Vaultoro allows me to open a gold wallet in seconds where I can trade easily with cryptos and gold. What I like about using Vaultoro instead of Tether is that the gold in my Vaultoro wallet is insured, audited, vaulted in Switzerland, and unlike fiat money, gold has increased in value for the last 20 years. Visit Vaultoro.gold/Tatiana today and get zero trading fees for the first 3 months. That is vault, like a gold vault, and oro, which is Spanish for gold. Vaultoro, LA. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Proof of Love. We took a little bit of a summer hiatus, but we're back with a new guest and new questions and answers and new ways to improve your emotional intelligence. I am joined by my two beautiful co-hostesses, Dr. Stephanie Murphy.
Hey there.
And Lauren Kasowitz.
Hi, everyone. Missed you guys.
I know. It's been a while, right? It's been a little while since we did the show. I'm really excited, of course, to be picking it back up. And before we kind of go into our guest, I kind of wanted to share something with the audience because I don't really know how else to deal with it. The past few Proof of Loves have been kind of hard for me to do because I'm dealing with some like boyfriend problems. I'm a boyfriend because guys, I am my boyfriend, but you know what I mean? Like boy problems. And it makes it really hard to talk about the show, like talk about anything relationship because I'm like very kind of sour on it. And then I've been listening to all these different love advice things. And frankly, I'm a little bit sickened because there's so much advice and I don't know which of it to take. And I don't know if I should talk about it on the show. And I'm not sure if we're going to figure this out. This is sort of like an impromptu speech. But what do you guys think about that? I mean, you guys, I think, have the secure relationship, so you're just like, whatever. But I don't know. Do you think that I'm being too raw on the show? Is it? I don't know. I'm finding it a little bit challenging. What do you think about that? And actually, maybe we can even ask our guest when she comes on. But first, girls, what do you think?
I can go first. I don't think you're being too raw. I think you're talking about your feelings. And if anything, I don't really think you're giving away that much information. You're going through something. You're going through something while you have a lot of people around you that are going through really happy times. It's like I told you on the phone yesterday. I think that you're amazing. And I think you're handling everything really well. And I think the fact that you still have all of this love and support and happiness for your friends around you is really rare. And that kind of empathy and friendship is something that I don't take for granted. And I think if you want to talk about how you feel on the show, that's kind of what this show is here for. I mean, I yammered on and on about my OCD 3 weeks ago. And yeah, it was scary, but it felt really good afterwards. So I think it could be cathartic for you. And I think however you feel in that moment, if you're taping one day and you want to talk about it, go for it. And if not. I think it's really up to you. The listeners just want to hear about the things we're going through, how we feel. I think it adds a real touch of humanity. That's my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely, Lauren. I really agree with what you said wholeheartedly. This is about being a human being, and humans aren't perfect. Like, we have mistakes, we go through stuff, we need help, and you're cultivating a support circle, and, we're all trying to figure this stuff out. This is why we do the show. And also, what a perfect thing to talk to our guest about today, right? Like, how do I, deal with these love problems I'm having? This is like what she does. So I think you're doing exactly the right thing. Yeah. I think people can relate to it. And I'm excited to see what comes out of today's show.
Me too. Before we get started, one last thing. I just wanted to say thank you to our wonderful sponsor, Vaultoro. They have a lot of new products and stuff going on over there. We all love Josh Shigala. He's a co-host on the Tatiana Show with me. And his company is doing some really neat stuff. So if you're interested in Bitcoin and gold, go to vaultoro.com/Tatiana and check it out today. Next up, we're going to bring on our guest. And so what's kind of neat about Valerie is she's the first random YouTube advice giver that I approached because I don't, normally this show is kind of geared a little bit toward crypto, a little bit toward tech people, and we're a news show. But I think that people outside of our environment are providing a lot of really awesome advice. Some of it is confusing, some of it is not. And she really seemed to have a good grasp on attachment theory, which we all know how obsessed I am with attachment theory. So Valerie Greene is a unique relationship mentor who helps women to inspire their man to fulfill their deepest needs and desires. A highly successful alternative to relationship therapy, Valerie helps women and couples create a secure emotional connection, not just problem solving or communication skills. Valerie holds numerous certificates in coaching, NLP, and emotional healing modalities. She leads workshops, retreats, and online courses for women and couples, and is the creator of the 12-week Manifest Lasting Love coaching program. She has shared her free e-guide with thousands of women called Manifesting Lasting Love, and we're going to include a link. So if you're listening to this and you want to check out the e-guide, you can listen to it, and she will let you download it for free. So check out the show notes. Thank you so much, Valerie, for joining us today.
You're welcome, Tatiana. I'm super excited to be here. And I mean, of course, I have my own opinion on the question that was asked by Stephanie.
Great. So what's your opinion? Should we just dive right into it, or do you want to kind of give us a little bit of background, or what do you think? This is an open discussion among friends.
Oh, yeah, which is wonderful. I love that we're all here in this room together. I mean, I have heard, just doing my own marketing and videos, that what listeners really want to hear is that they're hearing a human being, not just that we're an expert on a topic. But if you're sharing your own issues, as long as you're taking ownership from them, not blaming the guy, right? Because we know that one of the number one things that I help my clients do in relationships is take responsibility for your feelings, for your desires, for your side, and you're being vulnerable about it. I mean, that makes you so much more relatable. So, I know that when I was getting divorced back in 2013, I actually stopped doing relationship coaching for about a year because I felt like my emotions were too raw to be able to support other people. And I just went back to doing life coaching. But once I processed that, and now my ex-husband and I, which I kind of call my husband, not just my ex, because we're good friends. And once he actually helped me to forgive myself for the things that, I took responsibility, and that helped me grow so much more to be able to hold any issue that couples came with, empathy and compassion and wisdom because of what I went through. So I think that if you're sharing, your vulnerable process with people, then it's an amazing example for how other people could be doing their own healing and growth work.
Well, I hope so. It's kind of embarrassing. One of the things that makes it embarrassing is the thing that sort of attracted me to making the show in a lot of ways and kind of led me down this more deep self-reflection was attachment theory. And when you fall on the anxious side of the spectrum, I think that obviously, I think that's me in some ways. I mean, I think everybody can be a little bit avoidant too, or a little bit anxious, but I'm more anxious. I think that's the embarrassing one. Mm-hmm. So that's why I don't like it, because if I don't really like a lot of people, but if I like a person, I really like them. And then it's like a very scary thing to have those feelings. And then also, I was talking to my friend, and I've been having, I'm just going to go for the gold here. So I've been having problems with this guy that I've been dating, where he's kind of like avoidant, and not even avoidant. He had some traumatic stuff going on. I've been trying to figure out what's going on with him. But even though he came on really strong in the beginning, and he was really, really wonderful and showering me with lots of attention and just being wonderful, now he seems to have reverted, and some of like the abuse issues have come up because he was abused. And I feel like, number one, there's not a lot of resources for women trying to date guys who have been abused, because people almost make fun of guys who are abused, right? They don't even care.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, when you're dealing with a person who seems to have had some healthy relationships and not had attachment issues before, and now they have abuse issues, trying to figure out what is the best way to try and communicate with them. Because if a person is avoidant or maybe, was abused, they might need some distance. And that's been something that I have struggled with providing someone before, because I have the red alarm fire going on in my head. But I've been really, really good with that so far. So I find myself wanting to bring up these conversations with him in a nice, sweet way, but I never do it when I see him because I have such a nice time with him. He's so sweet. He's so pleasant. It's wonderful to be around him. Who wants to kill the vibe? But at the same time, I'm at home. I'm having full-on arguments and big discussions in my head repeatedly to my friends repeatedly. And it's just, it's hard to figure out, where those lines are. So maybe you could speak to a little bit of these, because I think this is a pretty common problem. Although, even though I've seen like a lot of videos about, when a man pulls back, you're supposed to pull back and step into your feminine energy. And I get that, but I don't always think that works with somebody who maybe is insecure. And I think that might be the case with this guy, like insecurity versus, I don't know, just like a malicious jerkery of normal guys in dating world today.
Yeah, no, I mean, I understand. And unfortunately, there are malicious people out there. Like, I think 1 in 25 people is a narcissist is the statistic.
Yeah, we've talked about this a lot on the show.
Yeah,
the estimates vary, but there's let's say there's a lot of people out there who are narcissists or psychopaths, according to the definitions that we're getting now.
Sure, and I mean, but that aside, it doesn't sound like that's what's going on here. And I think that advice that is given to women to just pull back. First of all, I think that is what is effective in the beginning of a relationship. When you're just starting to date somebody, you want to pull back to see whether or not he's really interested in pursuing you, and just observe how into you he is. But I find that what you're talking about is if a guy's really pursuing you hard in the beginning, and then all of a sudden the relationship becomes real for him. What happens to everyone is when the relationship becomes real, like, oh, wow, I really like this person, I might see a future with them. That's when our unconscious mind brings up all of the resistance that we haven't processed from the past. Like, can I really do this? What if, the abuse happens again, like it did with my ex, et cetera? And that's probably what's going on for him. And so, I mean, that sounds like that he's not necessarily avoidant, but that he just needs space, like you said. And what I would say, I mean, there's 2 components that I would address if I were coaching you, because I know this isn't an interview, so I'm not going to just go into coaching you. But the first part is like, your own, how you process your own feelings. And I love that you're talking about it with your girlfriends and like having discussions in your head, although you said that they were arguments. So what I would want to do is to help you to process your own feelings in a way that's harmonious and like really getting clear on what your needs and desires are. And then when you do talk about it with him, talking about it in a way, like what I like to say to women is that I teach women how to speak about their feelings to a man in a way that occurs as an opportunity to him. So that's not an argument. So that it's like, oh, like, let's do this thing together. It's really fun. But at the same time, because he has unprocessed abuse that he's maybe working through, the other equation is how it's going to land with him. So then the other side of that is for you, instead of making up stories in your head about what his behavior means, given all your other previous experiences with men, to be curious about him, like what kind of abuse was it? What fears does he have? How is he processing it? How does he want you to support him around that? Because a lot of women will jump in and start trying to be the guy's therapist, and that's obviously not going to work, because then that, puts you in like a mother therapist role, which is not attractive to a man. So it's really about getting curious and like finding out like, what are his desires? What are your desires? And then is there an intersection? That's like the opportunity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that the problem has become, before we were hanging out once every 5 days, and now it's like every 2 weeks. And in between, there's all this other stuff. It's starting to feel very, I don't know, I just have a really hard time bringing it up when I'm with him. I never had this problem. I'm really expressive, and I usually can be very hot-tempered, but I've been really even-keeling. And, it's funny because I feel like I'm paying for the sins of somebody else, right? Mm-hmm. Like that person, maybe they were nutso. And now if I show the slightest hint of expressing something that I need, I might get lumped into controlling, whatever it is that triggers the person. Right.
Right. Exactly. So,
I think it could be really challenging to spit it out. And I've never really had that problem before.
Yeah.
So, I mean, who knows what's going to happen? Do you think that it's different with attachment people and abuse people? Like in terms of, for example, I think that with attachment stuff, it's harder to work through that because it's so ingrained. Whereas abuse is something that happens a little bit later in life. So you can kind of compartmentalize that into, oh, well, that was this section. I'm an adult. I can, I have cognizance of what actually occurred in order to make that happen versus when you're a baby and your parents aren't like hugging you or whatever, you don't know what the reason is for that. So that's almost like an undefined distress within the body.
Definitely. I mean, I think, I'll make the metaphor with like a chronic illness versus an acute illness. It's even though attachment is not an illness and it's not a pathology and to sort of validate what you're saying before about like the embarrassment you feel about being anxious, 25% of the population has an anxious attachment style. So it's not like there's anything wrong with you. I look at attachment, actually building the skills of secure attachment it's a skill set. It's not like healing from an injury, but given that, I agree with you that if you have an avoidant attachment style from childhood, like either your parents were neglectful or smothering, usually is how it happens. That is very ingrained. And I mean, it can definitely be changed. I've worked with people with avoidant attachment before. And if they want to change, really the work is just about, legitimizing the fact that they have feelings and needs and learning how to talk about them and learning how to have empathy. And, if you're not a narcissist, you're just avoidant, then you can have empathy. It's just a question of like building that muscle. So I agree with you that somebody who's just been abused in a previous relationship might just need to do the healing work to get over that. Cause it's like PTSD, if that makes sense. It's something that like, it comes up for him, and when he imagines getting close to you, he's scared, right? But he probably doesn't want to admit that he's scared because then he'd be perceived as weak. So he needs space to process it. It sounds like that's what's going on. Would you agree?
Yeah, but I'm really losing it here. You know what I mean?
I was totally.
Oh my God, I got so many beautiful compliments, daily messages, all this stuff. And now it's just, I don't know. It sucks, basically.
Yeah.
I get messages every few days and they're all like bubbly and excited like a little puppy, and then he hides again. I'm like, all right, great.
Yeah.
This is worthwhile. No, it's really depressing because I really care for this person. I think he's a really good person. And I don't feel like I develop feelings for people very easily. But it's funny because he keeps saying, I don't want a relationship. And I've never once brought up that I want a relationship anyway. You know what I mean? It's coming up and it's like, listen, guy, chill out.
Totally. And I mean, my question for you is, and I totally hear that you're not attracted to that many people. I think that's healthy actually, because once we're really in touch with who we are, there is a small percentage of the population that we're compatible with. And given that, I mean, do you have an exclusivity agreement with this guy?
So we actually covered this on one of the other proof of loves, which is the other super, I don't know, I don't do them this close to home normally, but
it's
what
called
happened was
the freak out.
Yes.
Right.
That's the
And let
title.
me know if this is like too much. We can just talk more in generalities, but of course,
I think it's kind of cool. F it, we're just going for the gold today.
Okay.
It's getting raw on proof of love.
We're tugging it.
So we did an episode because, our first 2 dates were just really fireworks chemistry. Everything was amazing. The third date was like crazy, fantastic. And then it was one of those dates that turns into a 2-day date. And then at the end of the second day, everything was fine. In the middle of making out, he's like, I just want you to know I don't want a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, leading up to that, I mean, he would just talk about how perfect I was and how amazed he was. Like, I mean, I know when a guy is BSing me and I know when a guy is really into me, and this guy was really into me.
Yeah.
So I left and I was leaving for a trip for 3.5 weeks, which is like 9 million years when you first just started dating somebody. And so on my way home, I was like, listen, what the hell was that? And then he starts telling me about all this trauma and blah, blah, blah. But by the end of it, he's all, please let me take you to the airport. Ignore me if I ever do this again. Sometimes I freak out. And I said, look, I know I'm leaving town. So do you want to maybe say we won't date other people while we're figuring out what this is? And then he agreed to that. But then about halfway through the trip, he started really dropping off with the messages. So I told him that I didn't want to talk to him until I came home. And yeah, I don't know. It's like kind of been going downhill ever since, even though whenever we see each other in person, there's like fire. Not even just like, and not just like, oh, sexy time or something, but like chemistry in terms of personality and everything. So it's very, very confusing and so disappointing because you have somebody tell you you're perfect and all these great things and then they take it away. You feel like a kid that's just being tricked. So it's hard to be compassionate. And I know I said, arguing with them, that was sort of just like a comedic effect, right? I actually have really compassionate, nice conversations with him in my head. Only a few of them result in me being like, I hate this MFR. But most of them are actually really nice because I think he's a wonderful person. But I just worry that he has too many problems with self-esteem or something. I don't know. It's been a real
right. Totally. I mean, my because like I said, there's two sides to this. The first side is what does this bring up for you and what is your healing around this? Because I do think that if there's extreme chemistry in the beginning, that is a sign that it's bringing up old wounds that you have the opportunity of healing, if that makes sense. Like, because
I agree. Totally.
Yeah. So that's the first place that I would go. But I mean, like I said, it's kind of vulnerable on this podcast, but like I said, like what healing work are you doing around, processing your own feelings and needs and getting your needs met in other ways so that you can be resourced when you imagine being around him?
So the girls will know that I've actually been thinking about this stuff for a really long time. And it is kind of why we've built out the show. It's also to kind of make sure that there's richness in other parts of one's life. And I think that when somebody is anxious, they have a fear of lack or they have different kinds of things that come up. But reminding yourself that that is not the whole entire composition of your life, I think it's important. And it's, I think, just a lot of different things that I've been working on. What do you girls think? I mean, y'all have been with me on this journey for a long time.
Steph, I think you wanted to chime in here.
Yeah, I mean, I had a kind of a different question for Valerie, but just with Tatiana, like, yeah, I definitely see you doing a lot of healing work. You're all the time reading books about relationships, thinking about what they mean. You're talking out your feelings with your friends. Lauren and I are participating in this quite often. You're also going to therapy. And there certainly is like no shame in that. I hope you don't mind me saying that on the show. I think it's a great thing.
I think therapy is like the spa for the brain. Everybody should go talk to a therapist. I mean, I'm not saying get on drugs, but just talk to somebody.
Yeah, well, that's a psychiatrist, not a psychologist. There's a difference.
Yeah,
I just
absolutely.
call her my shrink. I don't know what the difference is. She doesn't put me on drugs. She just
right. To me. I mean, look, I think that whatever drugs are necessary for some people, but I mean, a good therapist is not only going to listen to you and like help you develop insights. What they've shown again and again that the research shows that is actually healing is providing the corrective experience. So anxious attachment is usually developed because in childhood, your parents were emotionally available sometimes, but not consistently. So your nervous system really got what it was like to receive comfort and soothing, but not as often as you needed. So, at least that's what most anxious attachment style people experienced. And so and talking to your friends and going to therapy is great. Just what's effective therapy is whatever experience you need in that moment, whether it's love, care, attention, like receiving that either from the therapist, but like being able to take it into your body, not just your mind, like really receiving love, care, attention, when you're triggered, not just right now, like, because if the therapist is listening to you and, hearing your story and validating you, that's great. But it's like, when you're freaking out, are you able to take in the love and caring and soothing that's available in the moment, either from your friends, from your therapist, from your higher self? A lot of what I teach my clients is reparenting, like really learning how to, connect to that vulnerable child inside. And it is just our imagination, but it really does activate that part of the brain that needs healing. And taking in that love and compassion in the moment and really having your inner child feel soothed and comforted and like you're always going to be there for her. I mean, that's, I think, like that and reprogramming the limiting beliefs are the two most important components that I've found of healing anxious attachment.
Cool. What do you think about this limiting beliefs? I mean, we've talked a little bit about affirmations. Is that what you mean? Because I've done, oh my gosh, I do so much stuff. And in the moment, just to your point, you know, it's usually a red alarm fire, but now it's like burning slightly less hot overall. But I mean, it's still very, very difficult. What do you think about resetting? What was the phrase that you used? Expectations?
Well, yeah, I agree that resetting expectations is part of the outer work. I didn't mention that, but I'd like to get to that. But I think what I said is providing the corrective experience. Is that what you're referring to?
Exactly. Or not having limiting beliefs about what I don't know. For example, like I feel because I've had so many bad relationships, when I get even a semblance of something really, really nice, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even know that they make McDonald's. But like, I don't know that they also have, you know, like Ruth Chris and Peter Luger's, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't have that frame of emotional reference. Like I haven't had those kinds of relationships. So I guess that interests me as well. Now that we've
right. I mean, I think that's
Fix Me Day. So
that's
yeah,
the outer work. Like, I mean, because like it sounds like because you aren't attracted to that many people and you found this amazing chemistry that it was your suggestion to not date others while he figures it out, and he went along with it, but that wasn't his suggestion. So he's not owning it. He's not owning that he wants to be able to be available for you while he's figuring this out.
Well, no, he agreed to it. He went along with it.
He went along with it, but like, I don't know, my opinion, at least this is just my professional opinion, is that you're more invested in the relationship than he is. And so that is going to cause you to that's going to cause anyone to have anxiety.
I don't know. I'm not really sure. I know that Stephanie wanted to ask a question. I wasn't being silent just to be like weird and like, I don't like your answer. Because like
I know.
You know what I mean? There's nothing to like about that, but I'm not so sure based on, you know, I'm not going to get into the whole entire like explanation of what happened afterward and all the other things.
Right,
but,
exactly.
I mean, he seemed pretty into it. And then all of a sudden when I was away, he just started getting weird.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I mean, if I was coaching you, I would want to really go into an exploration about that, because whoever's more invested in the relationship in the beginning, if the other person isn't, even though there's high chemistry and infatuation, the person who's more invested, especially if it's the feminine partner, is going to be anxious. And I mean, my antidote to that is just, even though we'll use your metaphor of McDonald's, like, you know, you're like being completely satiated by what you're eating now, but you're not aware that there's a Peter Luger and something else better out there because you haven't experienced it that much. So, I mean, my advice for women that are overinvested is to like at least be dating other men, just because then you're not just focused on this one guy who's not available until he says he wants to be exclusive, because then he's owning it. Like if it comes from him, then he's owning it. And that's when you have the most amount of leverage to be like, oh my God, that's amazing that you want to be exclusive. I want to be exclusive with you too. And here's what I need in order to make that work for me. If I'm not dating other guys, then I need to, you know, see you once a week and, you know, talk on the phone every few days, etc. Like, does that work for you? Is that what you mean by exclusivity? Because that's, you know, he's asking for it. So then he's invested and he wants to meet your needs. But if you're asking for it and he goes along with it, that doesn't mean he's invested. It just means he's going along with it. So, I mean, that's just my...
I don't feel like he was just going along with it. I kind of take you at that idea, but maybe, you know, either way, I don't want to date other people because it makes me want to vomit. Like I like someone, I like that person. And I think it's shitty and unfair to other people, because it's like, then I'm just killing time with some other dude that I'm comparing to somebody else that I really like. I don't think it's an ethical way of dating. I understand for anxious people, it's good to diversify your portfolio, but it's very antithetical to the way that I am. And I've always kind of wondered about that kind of advice. And even we've talked about it on the show. So I don't know.
Oh, sure. I mean, look, what I do as a coach is I empower people's own truth. So, I mean, if that's your truth, I was just giving my opinion. I think the work for you then is in, like I said, coming from a collaborative mindset when you communicate to really find out, like, so when you share your feelings with him, it's not going to go over well if you just start with your point of view. I think it needs to start with getting curious about his point of view. So, oh, okay, you said you weren't ready for a relationship. I want to know more about that. Like, what is it about a relationship that scares you? And like, how could I support you around that? And what do you need from me in order to feel safer? And, like in the beginning, you were really, gung-ho on like wanting to see me all the time. And now it's been less. Like, how do you want me to relate to that? Like, what do you want me to do when you're taking space? Like, is that something that you want to collaborate about? Like, how often would you want to be in touch? So just to be curious about, and then once you get his point of view, then you can be like, oh, okay, well, that I sometimes get anxious when it's been too long. And so like, what are your suggestions for how I can handle that? Or like, how do you want me to handle that? Or is that something that you're willing to collaborate with me on? Or do you just want me to take that on myself? Yeah, exactly. So, cause with someone like that, he's not like, if you just bring up your feelings with somebody who's too triggered about his own feelings, he's going to probably get scared away. He's gonna be like, oh, that's too much for me. So I think that if like a collaborative mindset means that you're getting curious about what his needs are, and then you're sharing your needs. It's not about not sharing yours. You can be like, well, to be honest, like I felt really fulfilled in the beginning when we were seeing each other every few days or whatever. And I felt a little anxious lately because I'm not sure what's going on. Like, but if you explain to me what's going on, then I would feel better. So,
So Valerie, this is a perfect time to jump in with the question I've been thinking about. So, when we were reading your bio, it said something about you inspire, you help women inspire their man to meet their needs or something. And this was like a little bit triggering to me because I was just thinking of like, my one ex in particular, but like, it could be a bunch of different exes, right? Where I wasn't happy in the relationship, and maybe I was trying to change them or to get them to meet my needs, but it really wasn't working, and it seemed like they were just unmovable. Like they were just not wanting to do the healing work or make the changes, or not even really caring about my needs. Right. And so eventually, I'm a very committed person. I stayed in those relationships probably longer than I should have, but eventually I called it quits because I was just like, this person doesn't want to change and I can't change them. I can't do all the work for both of us. And I felt like I was doing the work for both of us in those relationships. And so how do you know when someone is not going to change? Or how do you know when it's impossible to inspire someone in a very like taking leadership kind of way, like in a self-led kind of way? How do you know when it's just not going to work because they don't want to change and you should just call it quits?
That's such a great question.
Great question. I love that question.
Yes, I love that question too, because there's so many nuances to it. And I agree, if you're doing the work for both of you and he's not willing to change and you try everything and it's not working, then it probably is time to call it quits. But of course, if you're married, then there's a lot more at stake than if you're not, which needs to be taken into consideration in terms of how you end it and in what way and harmoniously, and kids, et cetera. And can you transition to being co-parents in a positive way? But I think the key to answering that is in how you're clarifying that he's not willing to do the work. Because I think that some people are not willing to do the work, and that when that becomes clear, then successful relationships are about collaboration and both people being willing to learn and grow together. And that's, because people change. And the main reason why a lot of people say they get divorced is because they both change, but everybody changes. And so are you willing to change together? Are you willing to stay connected while you change? Are you willing to support the ways in which the other person wants to change and invite them to support you in the ways that you want to change? And that's what makes a relationship successful. And so I think the key to deciding whether or not he's willing to join you on this growth path that you're on, is in how it is that you're clarifying that he's not. Like, and so what I encourage women to do, like I just demonstrated with Tatiana, is to get curious, because most people, when they really feel seen and heard and empathized and validated for their point of view, that's what makes them more likely to want to change. Not just to change to be the way the other person wants, but people will dig their heels in if they feel like someone's trying to change them without seeing them and, what they want and what they need and, what their desires and fears and boundaries and whatever are. And I've seen it again and again that when both people are really willing to listen to each other's point of view and validate it. Validation is huge, and empathize with it. And then ask curious questions about like, oh, great. So where are you at? And what do you want to do about this? And, what is it that you want and don't want, et cetera. Then they'll open up about how they want to change, because everybody wants to change, right? Life is about change. It's just what direction do they want to change in? And that's their work. And then the question is, are you willing to support him in the way he wants to change, not the way you want him to,
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, from my perspective, I'll just take one situation that I'm thinking of in particular. I felt like I tried everything. I was trying curiosity. I was trying just like accepting whatever this person was going to do and just hanging in there and showing that I was committed. I was trying like yelling at them and like, oh my God, you need to change. I'm not happy,
Right. Although, and like, I understand that you're just like, we get.
I was frustrated because I wasn't getting
exactly.
I was really frustrated because I wasn't getting the visibility either. And I didn't, I guess I didn't have a lot of people that I was asking for help. And so maybe that's my fault. Like I should have reached out for help more. But it was like to the point where I was suggesting, hey, like, let's read this book together and talk about it. And my partner was just like, oh yeah, I'll do that. And then like never did,
Yeah.
That was very frustrating. So eventually I did end the relationship, and I'm really glad I did, because then I realized with my next partner, oh wow, this is so different. Like this new partner is so curious and so open-minded and really cares like about, what I need in this relationship and really cares about growing together.
Definitely. And I think, like I said, that's what makes couples last. That's what causes longevity, is that both people are willing to grow together. And I definitely have that in my relationship now, which is amazing. And, but I don't believe that the success of relationships is equal to the longevity of the relationship. I think, sometimes it's best for people to separate. And like I said, I think that like how you separate is just as important as whether you do, because if you separate with like, anger and hostility, then you're just going to take that into your next relationship. But if you're willing to do the work of recognizing, what your part in the relationship not working out was, even if your part was that you were just attracted to somebody who was selfish, and what made you attracted to that? Did you mistake it for confidence? Like,
that's something I've been thinking about a lot over the past year. Why did I choose this person? What do I have an opportunity to heal? And yeah, I've definitely been actively working on that, but both by myself and with the new partner, which is great. And I really believe that relationships show us opportunities that we have to heal from things in our past. And they do it in a unique way that you don't really get if you're just staying single, right? Like a lot of people say, oh, you should stay single and work on yourself until you're quote unquote ready for a relationship. But sometimes relationships challenge you to grow in ways that you just don't get when you're staying single. You know what I mean? So I don't know. What do you think about that, Valerie?
Oh, definitely. I think that like there is no should about it. I think that in order to grow in a relationship, you have to be able to make space for that relationship. And sometimes people are single because they're super focused on another area of their life that needs attention. And so they don't have time for a relationship at that time. And I think that's great if that's what you're choosing. And the the triggers like the attachment wounds, etc. And it's not just about healing wounds. I mean, I think that like, people are equally scared of failure and scared of success. I mean, I think a lot of the growth in relationship is like being able to take in as much love and as much pleasure and as much enjoyment as you can possibly handle. And that can be growth. And, yes, you can do a lot of that on your own, but when we meet somebody with whom we feel attracted and connected on all levels, of course the growth is exponentially possible, because when we're with another person, that brings up both our wounds to heal, and it also brings up our edge in terms of how much pleasure and joy and love we can take in, and that allows us to grow into a greater and greater version of ourselves. And so of course, like, those things are only possible in relationship.
So Valerie, something you were saying before about breaking up, about like, can you transition to being co-parents or amicable, like if there's children involved? Obviously, that's really important. In my case, there were not children involved, but it was like a long relationship that went for many, many years. We were together for about 7 years.
Yeah.
So it was like people thought of us almost as like we're married or something. But I wasn't really happy with the breakup, like how it transitioned, right? We both had this intention to kind of like be friends after we broke up, but it fell apart really quickly. And I was trying to, for my part, I can say that I was trying to suggest like some exercises that we could do together and, to try to grow, like to transition this into a friendship, because I really cared about this person, right? They were a big part of my life. They were like kind of like family, but I think maybe they were just too hurt to do that, or I'm not sure exactly what happened, but they were really resistant to doing anything, to doing any work on like, transitioning to the friendships. And specifically, I don't know if you've heard of this book called Conscious Coupling.
And then there's coupling, yeah, Catherine Woodward Thomas. Yeah, I love that work. And what I love about her work is that you can go through that process even if your partner's not participating, just through doing guided visualizations and, doing your own work.
Yes, exactly. This was something that my new partner suggested. And I really found that valuable, like basically just thinking about all of the unresolved issues that you had in that past relationship and then saying, okay, what happened here? What benefits do I have now with the gift of hindsight, looking at these hurtful situations now that I can see now that I couldn't see before? What can I take responsibility for in this situation? That is like really empowering, because when you take responsibility for something, that means like you have some control over it, right?
Exactly. And also that's the only way that you have the opportunity of growing and evolving past that pattern that you were caught in from the past. Because what responsibility means literally is the ability to respond. And what that means is that, like, if you're taking responsibility, even if it's just for a small part, like what was it about you that was attracted to that person? Or it could be a larger part, like how you showed up, complaining about what you didn't want rather than talking about what you want in a collaborative way, etc. Like, that's taking responsibility means that you have the opportunity to then do something different next time. And what skills do you need to build and, on an internal and external level in order to be able to do it differently next time. And, then you will learn and grow and heal rather than just blame the other person.
I have a question. And I think it's kind of piggybacking off of this because it's something I've thought of. I know you've been through it, and Steph was just kind of bringing it up. I'm just wondering about the real capacity to maintain that close friendship, or even just a general friendship with somebody you were with for a really long time. Because like Steph, I was with somebody for 10 years, and he was like, beyond like family. He was like another limb. I mean, we grew up together. And I'm just wondering how you make that transition into friendship within another relationship. Because let's say you have a new partner. I know for me personally, I'm not okay with my current partner being friends with exes. He's not friends with any of his exes, thank God. But I know that would be a problem for me. And I know it's hypocritical to say, because I'm still friendly with a bunch of my exes. And if he had told me he wasn't okay with it, I would cut that off. But I'm just kind of babbling around the issue of how do you make that work within a new relationship, if you do have a friendship or a relationship with your old partner, your ex-husband, your ex-boyfriend, how can you kind of make that work for the new person that you're with? Is that a possibility? Is that something that's common? I mean, I've been struggling with that for some time.
Yes, I think that's an excellent question too. And I think as far as teachers go, Stan Tatkin, who's an excellent attachment-based therapist, speaks a lot about what it takes to create security in a new relationship and a marriage. But I understand it seems hypocritical, but what's really important is what helps the other person feel safe. And like, so if you're friends with your exes and your current partner is okay with that, but you wouldn't be okay with him being friends with his exes, it's not fair, but fairness is not what's important. What's important is that both of you feel safe. So if he feels safe knowing that you're friends with your exes, then it's not a problem. If he didn't feel safe, then it would be a problem. And then what's important is prioritizing whatever it is that he needs in order to feel safe, because otherwise the relationship's not going to work. And in that case, you know, you can get curious, like I talked about, you know, what is it about? Like, does he want you to not talk to that person at all? Is he okay if you're friends on Facebook? Like, you know, whatever it is that makes him feel safe, and why, what fear comes up for him, and what is that about for him? And like, see if it's really important that you're still in touch with your ex, then you can collaborate as to what type of relationship he feels comfortable with. But then it would be about him getting in your world and like deciding, why is it so important to you to be friends with your ex, and what does that provide for you? And, you know, is that something that you're willing to let go and not feel resentful about? And I do help couples come to those agreements. And actually, I really like John Gottman's process about that, about coming up with a compromise that both people really relate to. Because he talks about like that every compromise where people aren't resentful is made up of, like, there's a part of the issue that you're unwilling to compromise, which he kind of relates as the yolk of the egg. And then there's a part of the issue that you are willing to compromise, which is like the white of an egg. And so both of you connect over like, why is it so important to you to not compromise on this thing that's, you know, the yolk, but you can compromise on the white. So like, maybe he's okay with you being friends on Facebook, but never actually communicating, you know, or like, etc. Or maybe not, like maybe he's really, really, really not okay. Like it just triggers him so much if you're in touch with your ex, and then you need to decide how important that is to you. I mean, to most people, it's not that important. And so then you could have a conversation with your ex where you just explain to him why your current partner isn't okay with you speaking to them anymore. And it's not about them. And, you know, it's about you being happy now. And, you know, if you really do have a friendship, then they should understand that, you know.
I think I love that answer, because that's really pretty much what we've been doing, is really talking about it. And I think we discovered the crux of it for me is that I have developed real friendships with a lot of the people that I've dated. But on the other hand, I found my person. If it's something that makes him uncomfortable, I may feel guilty kind of ending something with an old friend, because I am a bit of a people pleaser, and maybe I miss them in a friendship sense. At the end of the day, it's what makes him feel safe. And I think that kind of compromise I think it comes with experience and maturity. I don't know that I would have been able to do that when I was younger. And I think I like to think I would have, but it's nice to know now that I've come to a point where I'm like, okay, this is what makes him comfortable. This is what doesn't make him comfortable. We discuss why. We've kind of done that naturally without even thinking about it. Good. And doing what makes him feel comfortable. If he had said to me, please don't spend time with any of your exes, it hurts my feelings or it makes me insecure, and we couldn't get through it. For me, there's no issue with cutting it off.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
It's hard to get there. I think it's kind of prioritizing that person that's in your life not over anything else, but prioritizing them as you'd want them to prioritize you.
Exactly. I think that's well said.
Thanks. It's tricky though. I feel like it's something that we do. A lot of women especially tend to feel a little guilty, or, I don't know. I think that's a whole nother topic for another show, but I think I think that advice and that process.
I want to jump in actually.
Yes, go for it.
Well, what you said earlier, I know we're getting close to the hour, so I think we should be finishing up pretty soon. But I did want to talk about people pleasing, right? And where does that come from? And how to tell if you're a people pleaser, how to tell if you're dating a people pleaser. And is that a bad thing? This might be a little bit too big of a thing to unpack at this time, but any comments on people pleasing? Like, Lauren, why do you think that you're a people pleaser? And is that do you think that's a good or a bad thing?
I think for me in the past, I had a really loving relationship with my ex of 10 years, but there were a lot of issues there, a lot of things to unpack that I'm still unpacking 10 years after our breakup. And I think at the end of the day, I kind of like to make everybody around me feel good, sometimes to the detriment of myself. So I don't want to hurt my ex. I don't want to hurt my current partner. I don't want to hurt this person. And I think I think when you get to a point where you really start putting yourself first and what's going to make you happy, it may seem like, okay, well, I'm going to prioritize my partner and their happiness, and that's the number one thing. But really, at the end of the day, you're prioritizing their happiness for your happiness as well. And I think if they're happy, you're happy, and it makes a successful relationship. I think if we can kind of look at where our people pleasing is coming from, and really seeing that at the end of the day, it's kind of just not taking care of ourselves. It's putting everybody else first, at least in my situation. And I think for a lot of men and women, I think if we can really look at that and be like, okay, I need to put myself first. They might be hurt. But is it going to work for me in the long run? I think that's kind of the way to work around it. At least for me, it's been. But I think it takes a while. People pleasing is so deeply ingrained from young friendships, from family, from God knows everything.
From being a baby.
Yeah. I mean, look, I have that, and I come from a super healthy family. I think it's just, a lot of it is just cultural, but I think when we can start to really look at why we're people pleasing, it's probably different for everybody. But if we can start looking at it and really kind of like digging into it and digging into ourselves and what we get out of people pleasing, and understand that at the end of the day, it's really about, pleasing ourselves first. Maybe that sounds selfish, but I think when we kind of get to that point, we can really be a little bit healthier within all of our relationships. I don't know if you guys think that's too much. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I really relate to what you were saying, Lauren. I've struggled with people pleasing too my whole life. I'm still working on it. I would say that this is something I recognized maybe at least 9 or 10 years ago, and I've been working on it ever since, and it's been a hard battle. It's really hard to maintain boundaries and to remember to put my own needs first. And as far as why do I have it, I've thought a lot about that. I think it's partly family issues. And also, like you said, it's different for everyone, but there are some common threads. And I think one of those common threads is being raised and socialized as a girl. You are supposed to put your own needs last to everyone else's. You're supposed to be the support system, especially for men. And actually, when we're all kids, we learn that we need our parents' love to survive. And if we do something that pisses off our parents or loses their love, that can be very, very dangerous for us as a child. When we're an adult, not so much. But we don't, our unconscious mind or our lizard brain doesn't exactly get that message. We don't really know that. At some point we become an adult. We don't need our parents so much anymore. We don't depend on them for survival. But when we were a kid, it was really important to please them. And so we learn how to do that very expertly, or at least some of us do. And so we have to somehow give our brain the message that, hey, this is, call off the alarm. This isn't a life or death situation anymore. If someone's unhappy with you, or if somebody doesn't like you because you don't do what they want, it's not the end of the world anymore. And, this is for me, this was all about, getting loved and thinking that I need to do something extra in order to be loved. And so I was always, the one who's going above and beyond to try to be loved. And I had to realize healing is about realizing that the most important thing is that I can give love to myself anytime. It doesn't matter what is going on. I could be in prison. I could be in a war zone. I can always give love to myself. And that means I don't need to get love from other people. And so when I do that, or when I realize that, I can have boundaries, because I don't need to do, to jump through hoops or do extra stuff to make sure I get the love of those around me, because I can give it to myself. I'm going to stop rambling now, but like,
I know, I love that.
self-love is the key.
Yes, I completely agree. And when you give love to yourself first, then it naturally, the cup naturally spills over into other people, and then you authentically want to help them as opposed to pleasing them. You want to help them and serve them, and that comes from a healthy place.
I totally agree.
Valerie, do you see this come up in like couples counseling kind of dynamics? And do you think it's a positive thing or a negative thing? And what about men who are people pleasers? Because it's not always the woman.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I do think that I agree women are socialized a little more that way. But sure, men can be people pleasers too. And it's the same healing for men to learn how to give love to themselves and then have healthy boundaries. And then from that place, feel filled up to then serve other people authentically. Yeah, sure. That comes up all the time. I mean, it's a spectrum of healthy to codependent, because codependent people put other people's needs first to the detriment of their own. And it is learning how to put yourself first in a healthy way, not in a selfish way. But that's recognizing we can give love to ourselves first and then to other people. It's not give love to ourselves first and not care about other people,
Yeah, I hope not.
No, I think that's beautifully said. And I think a nice thing is when you put yourself first and you see that those people who truly love you are still there. They still love you. They're not running away. They're not, whether it's friends or family or a loved one, there's a respect level there. And like you said, Valerie, it's not about being selfish, but it's about just loving yourself and giving yourself what you need. At the end of the day, the people that are healthy for you, at least in my experience, they appreciate that. They respect that.
Totally.
Sometimes they'll even say that. Thank you for letting me know what you want.
Yeah,
Thank you for setting a boundary.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it depends how you do it too. I mean, and then it's a whole other discussion. And I know that like we're getting to the end of our time, but when you say self, putting yourself first, I think there's many different parts of us. There's, the healthy adult part of us. There's our inner child. There's like wounded parts of us. And so it's not about just putting ourselves first because I want to, go shopping all day. Like it's really identifying what are your core emotional needs and giving those to yourself so you feel filled up. So then you can ask yourself, what's in the highest good for me and others?
I agree. I want to add something really quick, just because I've had experience with this personally. I had a lot of people-pleasing issues around moving to California for my fiance. I was really worried about how people would take it and would people be upset with me that I was leaving. And at the end of the day, I think a lot of my friends were really surprised at how quickly I made that decision to come out. And I think that was a huge kind of growth and maturity thing for me emotionally, is that I worried about it and then I cut it off right away. And it was like, you know what? I'm going to miss everybody. I'm going to still stay in touch, but it's not about whether they're going to miss me. It's about whether moving out to California is the right, healthy thing for me to do. Do I want to explore this relationship? Is that going to make me happy? And I've heard from a lot of friends that there was a lot of just happiness for me, that I did just make that decision. I didn't take everybody else's opinion and feeling into perspective in terms of determining whether I do it or not. And it was such an amazing feeling for me. Everyone said they would miss me and that they loved me, but that they were proud of me. And that was like, God, that was so validating. So I just wanted to share that.
This is not a vote by committee. It's like, this is your life and this is what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And then if someone's upset about it, you can be empathic towards them. Like,
exactly.
Like, what's the impact on you? I want to be compassionate for that. But then, and how can I support you with that? But it's not about changing your decision for them.
Exactly. And that is how I handled it. Just naturally, that's how I felt. But it was like it was such an incredible thing to see the support that I had from those people, including Steph and Tatiana. I just wanted to put that out there for people that are maybe scared of putting themselves first. Mm-hmm. But the people who love you will be there for you and be there for them too.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a true test in who your real friends are.
Yeah. And to really I don't know. I really appreciated it. And I made an extra effort with those people, especially family and close friends, to show them how much they mean to me, and that moving across the country wasn't giving up friendships. It was
beautiful.
Yeah. So I just wanted to add that in for people who may still be a little bit wary of doing things just for themselves.
See, that's some proof of love right there. But I hope you guys enjoy how I worked that in there. Valerie, you've been wonderful. Such an awesome guest. We'd love to have you back on sometime soon. I think we're going to do a video together on your channel. So that'll be cool. Tell people where they can check you out, check out some more of your work. And then I know you've got a free ebook. We're going to put the link down there, but if you could just run through that real quick before we sign off, that'd be great.
Great. Yes. I mean, I actually have 3 free gifts. I have a video training for couples and to stop fighting and experience more intimacy. And then I have the free gift for women in relationship, which is the Manifest Lasting Love e-guide, which is basically how to share your feelings with a man in a way that inspires him to want to listen and meet your needs and desires. And I also have a free gift for single women that is the Magnetic Dating Formula, which is another ebook. So I do have all of those on my homepage at coachvaleriegreene.com. So that's VALERIE and Green with an E at the end. And of course, the free gift link that I shared with you is that Manifest Lasting Love e-guide. And really, I just want to leave the audience with exactly proof of love, that everything we talked about, that if you're willing to authentically give love to yourself and then share it with others and be curious about what it is that they want and desire and collaborate, then I mean, that's, how you create lasting partnership.
That's awesome. It's what we want for the crypto community and tech community and the world beyond. The world is a little bit funky, but we can all be brought together with a little bit of love. So thank you very much once again to our sponsor, Voltoro. Check us out on this is proofoflovecast.com. And we usually put out shows on Fridays, but then we also have thetatianashow.com, and that goes out usually on Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's like a little bit different stuff, but also fun. So check us out on both. Thank you everyone for tuning in today. We will see you next time on Proof of Love.
Bye.
Show me your heart. I know that it's beating. Tell me that you love me too. So I know your heart is true. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. Thank you for listening to Proof of Love. Please follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Proof of Lovecast. More episodes can be found at proofoflovecast.com. And make sure you leave a review on iTunes and tell your friends. Proof of Love has been brought to you by CryptoMediaHub.com, a boutique marketing and PR agency for Bitcoin and beyond.